Okay, I'm back, and now we want to talk about specific gravity, which is related to density. So if you recall in an earlier lesson, we talked about what density was. So density is going to be equal to the mass of an object divided by the volume of that object. And so some objects are very dense, and then others are not so dense. Well, if you recall, when we talked about density, it had to have a unit. So, for example, the density of something might be 10 grams per cubic centimeter. Well, instead of having to use the units, sometimes it's better to use a ratio. So it turns out that the density of water is 1 gram per cubic centimeter. So the specific gravity of a mineral would be the density of that mineral divided by 1, which it's the same number. It's just it doesn't have the unit. So if something has a specific gravity of 8, what's its density? It would be 8 grams per cubic centimeter. So it's just a little bit easier than using the word density. An example of a mineral that is very dense is going to be galena because it has lead in it. It has the element lead in there, so that's why it's so dense. Some other special properties of minerals would be electrical. So you may have heard of radios that use crystals. And the crystal is quartz. So that if you take a crystal of quartz and you apply a lot of pressure on it at a certain axis, then what will happen is that crystal will produce a tiny bit of electricity. And so that can be used in a radio to make radio waves. Another example of a physical property is magnetism. And so there is a mineral called magnetite, which is magnetic. And so the ancient Chinese used this mineral to make compasses with, for example. Another one is some minerals have some kind of a chemical property to them. So halite, we said, was salt. And so if you were to taste the mineral halite, it would taste salty. Calcite, we mentioned, reacts with acid. So that's where we get caves from. So if you take hydrochloric acid and you put a drop of it on a calcite crystal, it will start to fizz. There are optical properties. So for example, calcite, if you were just to hold it in your hand, it would have a certain color to it. But then if you illuminate the calcite with black light, with ultraviolet light, it actually glows. And so there are several minerals that will glow when you hit them with ultraviolet light. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the abundance of the elements in the universe.